Helene strengthens to a Category 4 hurricane as it nears Florida's Gulf Coast. AP's Heather Hollingsworth and Kate Payne reporting from Crawfordville, Florida. Hurricane Helene strengthened into a Category 4 storm ahead of its expected landfall on Florida's northwest coast Thursday night as forecasters warned that the enormous system could create a nightmare storm surge and bring dangerous winds and rain across much of the southeastern U.S. Helene prompted hurricane and flash flood warnings extending far beyond the coast up into northern Georgia and western North Carolina. Strong winds already cut power to more than 600,000 homes and businesses in Florida, according to the tracking site PowerOutage.us. The governors of Florida, Georgia, Alabama, the Carolinas, and Virginia all declared emergencies in their states. The hurricane's eye was about 90 miles, 145 kilometers, south of Tallahassee, Florida, and had sustained winds of 140 miles per hour, 225 kilometers per hour, according to the U.S. National Hurricane Center. It was moving north-northeast at 24 miles per hour, 39 kilometers per hour, and life-threatening storm surges of up to 20 feet, 6 meters, were expected in the Big Bend area of Florida. The National Weather Service in Tallahassee issued an extreme wind warning for the Big Bend as the eyewall approached. "Treat this warning like a tornado warning," it said in a post on X. "Take shelter in the most interior room and hunker down." Helene arrives barely a year since Hurricane Idalia slammed into Florida's Big Bend and caused widespread damage. Idalia became a Category 4 in the Gulf of Mexico, but made landfall as a Category 3 near Keaton Beach, with maximum sustained winds near 125 miles per hour, 205 kilometers per hour. The storm's wrath was felt widely, with sustained tropical storm-force winds and hurricane-force gusts along Florida's west coast. Water lapped over a road in Siesta Key near Sarasota and covered some intersections in St. Pete Beach. Lumber and other debris from a fire in Cedar Key a week ago crashed ashore in the rising water. Beyond Florida, up to 10 inches, 25 centimeters, of rain had fallen in the North Carolina mountains, with up to 14 inches, 36 centimeters, more possible before the deluge ends, setting the stage for flooding that forecasters warned could be worse than anything seen in the past century. Heavy rains began falling and winds were picking up in Valdosta, Georgia, near the Florida state line. The Weather Service said more than a dozen Georgia counties could see hurricane-force winds exceeding 110 miles per hour. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said that models suggest Helene will make landfall further east than earlier forecast, lessening the chances for a direct hit on the capital city of Tallahassee, whose metro area has a population of around 395,000. The shift has the storm aimed squarely at the sparsely populated Big Bend area, home to fishing villages and vacation hideaways where Florida's Panhandle and Peninsula meet. Please write your name, birthday, and important information on your arm or leg in a permanent marker so that you can be identified and family notified, the sheriff's office in mostly rural Taylor County warned those who chose not to evacuate in a Facebook post, the dire advice similar to what other officials have doled out during past hurricanes. Still, Philip Took, a commercial fisherman who took over the business his father founded near the region's Appalachee Bay, planned to ride out this storm like he did during Hurricane Michael and the others, on his boat. "If I lose that, I don't have anything," Took said. Michael, a Category 5 storm, all but destroyed one town, fractured thousands of homes and businesses and caused some $25 billion in damage when it struck the Florida Panhandle in 2018. Many, though, were heeding the mandatory evacuation orders that stretched from the Panhandle south along the Gulf Coast in low-lying areas around Tallahassee, Gainesville, Cedar Key, Lake City, Tampa, and Sarasota. Among them was Sharonda Davis, one of several gathered at a Tallahassee shelter worried their mobile homes wouldn't withstand the winds. She said the hurricane's size is scarier than anything because it's the aftermath that we're going to have to face. Federal authorities were staging search and rescue teams as the Weather Service forecast storm surges of up to 20 feet, 6 meters, and warned they could be particularly catastrophic and unsurvivable in Appalachee Bay. Please take any evacuation orders seriously," the office said, describing the surge scenario as a nightmare. This stretch of Florida known as the Forgotten Coast has been largely spared by the widespread condo development and commercialization that dominates so many of Florida's beach communities. The region is loved for its natural wonders, the vast stretches of salt marshes, tidal pools, and barrier islands. "You live down here, you run the risk of losing everything to a bad storm," said Anthony Godwin, 20, who lives about a half-mile, 800 meters, from the water in the coastal town of Panacea, as he stopped for gas before heading west toward his sister's house in Pensacola. School districts and multiple universities canceled classes. Airports in Tampa, Tallahassee, and Clearwater were closed Thursday, while cancellations were widespread elsewhere in Florida and beyond. While Helene will likely weaken as it moves inland, damaging winds and heavy rain were expected to extend to the southern Appalachian Mountains, where landslides were possible, forecasters said. The Hurricane Center warned that much of the region could experience prolonged power outages and flooding. Tennessee was among the states expected to get drenched. Helene had swamped parts of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula on Wednesday, flooding streets and toppling trees as it passed offshore and brushed the resort city of Cancun. In western Cuba, Helene knocked out power to more than 200,000 homes and businesses as it brushed past the island. Areas 100 miles, 160 kilometers, north of the Georgia-Florida line expected hurricane conditions. The state opened its parks to evacuees and their pets, including horses. Overnight curfews were imposed in many cities and counties in South Georgia. "This is one of the biggest storms we've ever had," said Georgia Governor Brian Kemp. Rain and wind are expected to increase Thursday along coastal Florida's Big Bend region as Hurricane Helene approaches. For Atlanta, Helene could be the worst strike on a major southern inland city in 35 years, said University of Georgia meteorology professor Marshall Shepard. Helene is the eighth named storm of the Atlantic hurricane season, which began June 1. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has predicted an above-average Atlantic hurricane season this year because of record warm ocean temperatures. In further storm activity, Tropical Storm Isaac formed Wednesday in the Atlantic and was expected to strengthen as it moves eastward across the open ocean, possibly becoming a hurricane by the end of the week, forecasters said. Officials said its swells and winds could affect parts of Bermuda and eventually the Azores by the weekend. In the Pacific, former Hurricane John reformed Wednesday as a tropical storm and strengthened Thursday back into a hurricane as it threatened areas of Mexico's western coast with flash flooding and mudslides. Mexico President Andrés Manuel López Obrador raised John's death toll to 5 as communities along the country's Pacific coast prepared for the storm to make a second landfall.